Hello everyone and welcome to the first video on multiple linear regression. Yes, that sounds a little daunting, but multiple linear regression, it's sort of a natural extension of bivariate correlation. So this is really sort of statistical correlation part 2. And you may be wondering, why do I have a wrestling cage, a fighting cage on the first, on the title slide here? We will talk about that. We'll talk about that eventually. But let's talk about the leap from bivariate correlation to regression. And in order to make this leap, we have to talk about when we use bivariate correlation. We use bivariate correlation, right, when we have two continuous variables, right? One continuous IV, one continuous DV, generally, right? And so in the first example of bivariate correlation in the last unit, we talked about how math anxiety is related to confidence in doing well in this course. Right, and we found that there is a strong relationship between the two, as math anxiety increased, confidence in doing well in the course decreased quite a bit. But what if we have two continuous predictors, right? So what if we add another continuous IV to this model, to this diagram, right? We would have to use multiple linear regression. So multiple linear regression assesses the effects of two or more continuous predictors on one continuous DV. So the research question that we first working with here is, how do math anxiety and stats anxiety predict confidence in doing well in this course, right? So now we have, right, three variables, two continuous predictors, math anxiety, and now stats anxiety, and one continuous outcome, confidence in doing well in the course. Now, before we jump into the SPSS output, I would like to do some Venn diagrams. And so these Venn diagrams will hopefully just further your understanding of conceptually what's going on in multiple regression. All right, so there's going to be 6 sets of hypothetical results that I want you to try to draw. So get out a piece of paper, right, and try to have room to try out these 6 hypothetical results. All right. So for example, for the first hypothetical result, we're just going to pretend that stats anxiety and math anxiety are unrelated to each other. Stats anxiety is unrelated to confidence, and that math anxiety is also unrelated to confidence. So we'll pretend that this is the state of reality. So what would our Venn diagram look like? Well, how do we Venn, right? We Venn diagram, we need a circle for each of the variables here, right? So maybe start out with your DV, confidence. So draw a circle for confidence here. And now you need 2 more circles, right? One for math anxiety, one for stats anxiety to complete the Venn diagram here, right? So go ahead and pause the video, draw out what you think the Venn diagram should look like, and then unpause the video, and we'll move to the next slide where we'll I'll reveal what your Venn diagram should look like. So pause here, draw, and then unpause, and we'll move on to what your Venn diagram should look like. So your Venn diagram should look something like this, right? Where all 3 circles, right, are drawn, but there is no overlap whatsoever between the 3 variables, right? All 3 variables are unrelated to each other, so there should be 0% overlap, right? All the R's here would equal 0. So for hypothetical result 2, we'll pretend that stats anxiety and math anxiety are unrelated to each other still. Here, stats anxiety is strongly related to confidence, though. But math anxiety is unrelated to confidence. So again, pause the video, draw what you think the Venn diagram should look like, and then we'll, on the next slide, reveal what it should look like. So your Venn diagram should look something like this. where you have stats anxiety and math anxiety. There's no overlap because they are unrelated to each other, but stats anxiety is strongly related to confidence. So there should be quite a bit of overlap there. But math anxiety is unrelated to confidence. All right, hypothetical result 3. So stats anxiety and math anxiety are unrelated to each other still. Stats anxiety is unrelated to confidence, but math anxiety is strongly related to confidence. So again, pause the video, draw what you think the diagram should look like. And so your Venn diagram should look something like this, where there is no overlap between stats anxiety and math anxiety, because they're unrelated to each other. The R would equal 0. Here, stats anxiety is unrelated to confidence, so no overlap between those two. And then math anxiety and confidence are strongly related, so there should be a good amount of overlap between those variables. Hypothetical result 4. So let's pretend that stats anxiety and math anxiety are still unrelated to each other, but stats anxiety is strongly related to confidence, and math anxiety is also strongly related to confidence. So again, pause the video, draw the Venn diagram. So your Venn diagram should look something like this, where you have no overlap between stats anxiety and math anxiety, but you do have a good amount of overlap between stats anxiety and confidence, and math anxiety and confidence. Now, we probably imagine that the real results probably look something like this, where both forms of anxiety are related to confidence, right? Because we found math anxiety related to confidence, so it's likely that anxiety about the about taking this course, right, relates to how confident you feel that how confident that you will do well in the course, right? But it's also likely that stats anxiety and math anxiety are probably related to each other, right? They're both forms of anxiety. They're probably related to each other. So in hypothetical result 5, let's have stats anxiety and math anxiety strongly related to each other, right? And then stats anxiety is strongly related to confidence. And then math anxiety is also strongly related to confidence. So again, pause the video, draw what you think the Venn diagram should look like. So your Venn diagram should look something like this. So you have stats anxiety and math anxiety have a good amount of overlap. Stats anxiety and confidence also have a good amount of overlap. And then math anxiety and confidence also have a good amount of overlap. And now, for the first time, sorry, Duchess is trying to eat my keyboard. For the first time, there we go. For the first time, we have overlap between all 3 variables here. And that is represented by the shaded black area here. So the shaded black area here represents the shared variability or overlap between all 3 variables. Now the blue over here represents the unique contribution of stats anxiety in predicting confidence, while the green portion here represents the unique contribution of math anxiety in predicting confidence. And this is what multiple regression is all about. Multiple regression, at least the first type that we'll look at here, it is going to take out, it's going to account for the shared overlap here, the shaded black area. It's going to take that out. It's going to account for that. And then regression is going to tell us what the unique contribution of stats anxiety is in predicting confidence and what the unique contribution of math anxiety is in predicting confidence after accounting for, after taking it out, after partitioning out the shared overlap between all 3 variables. So what is the amount in blue? What is the amount in green? That's what multiple regression is going to figure out for us. What is the unique contribution of each IV in predicting the DV? Now, the last set of hypothetical results here, going to get maybe a little tricky, right? So here, stats anxiety and math anxiety are still strongly related to each other. But stats anxiety and math anxiety are both related to confidence, but math anxiety better predicts. That is, has more overlap with confidence. So again, pause the video and draw out what you think the Venn diagram should look like. So this tends to be probably the trickiest Venn diagram here for you guys. At least when we're in class, there's a lot of a lot of faces that look like deer in headlights. But your Venn diagram should look something like this, right? So we still have shared overlap between all three variables, but the unique contribution of stats anxiety should be smaller than the unique contribution of math anxiety. So the portion in blue here should be a bit smaller, noticeably smaller than the portion in green. So hopefully you'll notice, or hopefully maybe this will, click in your head. So as the correlation between the independent variables increase, what's going to happen to the overlap between all three variables? What's going to happen to that the black portion in the diagrams? So in this case, in this hypothetical Venn diagram, the relationship between math anxiety and stats anxiety is very weak. So the shared overlap between all three variables is actually going to be quite small. But as math anxiety and stats anxiety are more related to each other, as the correlation between the IVs increases, the black shaded portion here, the overlap between all three variables, is going to also increase, right? So as the correlation between all three independent between both independent variables here increases, the overlap between all three variables will increase. So we'll see that again. So as the correlation between our IVs increases, right, as there's more overlap between the IVs, the shared overlap between all three variables increases. So as the correlation between the independent variables increases, it's going to be less clear if both independent variables will sort of win out here, whether both will uniquely predict our DV, or it's possible that one IV will better predict the DV. Right. So it's sort of like having a statistical cage match where stats anxiety is is going up against having a head-to-head match with math anxiety to see which one will be the better predictor, or if it'll be a draw, right? So two IVs enter the ring, which one will win? Or it may be a draw where both equally predict the DV. So let's get ready to rumble!